Any cutbacks that you make within operational will mean a reduction in service. There is a chart there, and staff will be able to cover it, either Kathy or Brian, that tells you the percent increase in each section operationally, and she'll be able to tell you what that's attributable to. And you can throw questions at her if that's agreeable with council to start. I'm not sure what slide number it is, but Kathy will tell us. Sorry, Kathy, I thought it was. Are you able to pull it up on the screen? Or we can just take general questions too, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I think probably let's just go with the general question.
Okay.
Okay, so let's start with general questions, and we'll start off with Councillor Johnson.
Through the chair to Ms. Slaney. My question is exactly that, about operating budgets. So all these capital budget requests or information sheets that we received, are those currently within the operating budget as it stands now, or no?
Sorry. So the capital sheets attached are part of that capital summary, but also any of the operating funding in that column are included in the tax operating budget.
So hypothetically, so we are looking at reserves of 5.7 million, is that correct? I'm pretty sure that's
Think
the
so.
sound. I thought I got so many
I know.
spreadsheets here,
Hold on. Let me
I thought it
pull
was
up my-
5.7. For the reserves?
So the capital reserves was 7.5,
What page?
67.
So 48. So if we do those smart meters hypothetically, we're pretty much wiping out the entire environmental.
That's correct.
So that's 20% of our reserves are just going to smart meters. And I think we're pretty low on our reserves to begin with, just throwing that out there.
Councillor Phillipson?
My question is about the sanitary trunk main. You didn't get LGSG grant last year to do that project. Are you going to apply for that again?
So the LGFF is an automatic allocation. Let me just quickly pull up my grant tracking sheet here. So we do have LGFF and CCBF planned for that grant funding for that specific project.
So you applied again?
We will be applying for that, yes. Yep.
Councillor Idris?
I remember last year we were talking about the reserves, and we were going to streamline those reserves a little bit regarding like the number of accounts and what each account does. Are we going to do that, or did we do that, or?
We probably did. You're probably thinking about the offsite levies, and we had so many of those, and we did kind of consolidate those into like just one water, one sewer, one transportation. That was done, I think, probably 3 years ago now. So that might be what you're.
So
What you're
the other ones are set like this.
The other ones are set like this, yes. I can't comment to what previous staff might have been planning on that. I'm not aware of any big changes to those ones, just the offsite levy ones I'm familiar with.
Okay. The other question is actually those two slides, 21 and 22. Sorry. Yeah, and really so slide 22 because it has both. What is this 8? Like this is. Can you explain this slide a little bit more?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to speak to that again. I really like this slide just because it does help differentiate the tax revenue and tax rate. So on the left, we've got the tax rate, and that is the mill rate. And so you multiply that by the assessment and divide it by 1,000 in order to calculate the property tax for an individual property. And so you can see it rising from about 8.2 up to 8.4 and hovering there around 8.4. While in terms of real dollars, we see 2022 decreasing the mill rate to 2023, but the actual municipal tax revenue increasing from 2022 to 2023 by 5.5%. So is there any other aspect of that graph you'd like to know more about?
Like what I was thinking about, like, so the 8.3 is the mill. What is the 1 mill rate is like the 100.
Right. And so if I had a property that was worth 100,000, we'd divide that by 1,000, and then if we multiplied that by 1 mill rate, the property taxes owing would be $100.
100. Okay.
So as your assessment goes up,
What you are paying.
your mill rate will come down if you're getting the same amount of revenue. So
Yes,
just
if
say
you're
your
getting-
assessment doubled and you still want to get the same amount of dollars, your mill rate should be cut in half.
Okay.
That's why they don't both increase all the time. So when council would decide, say you decide on a 5% tax increase, that does not mean your mill rate goes up 5%. You have to look at your total assessed value to see what the actual mill rate increase is.
So in average, like I was looking at, like we pay about 1 point something of the value of your property as. So is that 8 is that 1 point something? That like, which is the average assessment? Because
So thank you for the question. So I think if I'm clear on the question, that mill rate is applied across the entire municipality. And so regardless of where your property is located, that 8.2 or 8.6 mill rate would be applied to any residential property.
okay.
Councillor Nesbitt.
Mine's just a question on, would we be able to, and maybe it's somewhere in all of this, that under the category transfers to boards, agencies, and organizations, would we be able to get a breakdown of those different groups and how much they received this year, or how much is being to go out to them this year? Is that possible?
Yeah, I can provide that for sure.
Thank you. I'm seeing some of the other council members shaking their head yes, so I think they were wondering about that as well. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I could, just on that. Tomorrow, we will be distributing a package of who will be coming Wednesday afternoon, right at 1 o'clock, to request funding. And we'll have a list of the groups that are requesting funding.
So they're requesting funding before we have made any approval.
Yes. So you know how much they want.
Gotcha.
You have your hand up,
I
Councillor
just,
Johnson?
yeah, sorry, just in it, yeah, I think I'm with Counselor Nesbitt. It's the transfers to local boards and agencies and the transfers to individuals and organizations. We're showing $1.2 million, and I think we just want to know what that is, because if that's operating budget, we want to know if that's committed or if that's what we're suggesting. I think that's where we're going is, when I look at an operating budget, it's to keep the lights on and that, but if this is just suggested items, hypothetically, is that something that we can look at? Is that what you're, is that kind of?
Counselor Phillipson.
And I'm also assuming that like ORCS, the Planning Commission in Lethbridge is involved in this too, included in this, plus more,
Yes,
like, yeah,
that's
and we
correct.
have to pay them.
No, but I think they're contracted services.
Yeah, they would be a contracted services under Director Tiffin's department. Yeah,
Councillor
for sure.
Regner?
For revenue, we had, for franchise agreements, we increased with our vote here of 3%. 330,000 was electricity. Where's the 110 for natural gas?
So those are the most up-to-date numbers from our providers, ATCO and Fortis, and it's based on a prorated portion of the year because we can't apply it to the January 1st. We have to wait and would apply it to April. So thank you for the question. It's a good question.
Counselor Johnson.
Sorry, I know I have lots of questions. First budget. So again, all these capital budget things that we see on these little, these are things that are currently in the operating budget, but not necessarily decided on. So is that what we're doing on Wednesday?
So there are current requests that you guys have to approve or not, based on if you want to speak to the directors about the specific projects and why they think they're important. But any of the operating portion of the funding is included in the operating budget, which you are also approving. So if you, let's say there's a item that you don't want to contribute operating to, then we're missing a funding source. So we've included them in the operating budget so you can see the impact to the operating budget. And to be honest with you, our capital this year is actually reducing our operating impact because last year in our budget, there was more contributions, capital contributions from operating than there's required this year. So we're actually reducing the tax rate just a little bit through those, if that makes sense.
So if I could just add to that, Mr. Mayor, sorry.
Is
Councillor.
your microphone on?
So the capital is not included in operating. Within the operating budget, you can transfer money to the capital budget for capital acquisitions. And that's called capital purchase from operating. The correlation between the two of them, what you're going to find in these sheets when they cover them on Wednesday, is they're going to tell you what the operational impact is of a particular capital item should it be pursued. For example, the shop, the public works shop. That's within the capital budget, but they'll tell you what the operational impact is of that capital project.
Counselor Idris.
And that number is, if I'm correct, $321,000.
That's the operating contributions towards the capital purchases, yes, which is lower than the last year's one, so.
Counselor Nesbitt.
I'm sorry. Could I please have clarification on the revenue side, what would go into the other part of the revenue? And is it about, you probably said it was probably balanced off with the expenditure side. I didn't take a peek. But you don't have to give it to me today, but if you wouldn't mind by Wednesday, that'd be
Yeah,
great.
maybe if we could bring it back on
Sure.
Wednesday. Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's never a problem.
Counselor Regner.
Again, to the revenue side, being new at this, we apply for grants and funds and all that kind of stuff. Is there a list of everything possible a municipality can put grants in for, and do we maximize that?
I'm going to take a grant course, at noon tomorrow.
I don't think we have like a list of everything possible, but we have a list, like we know the ones that automatically are allocated. We know the ones that we regularly apply for, and we know of some that are available, but I don't know if there's a staff member here that knows like every single.
Is there some way we can maybe spend a day, a week trying to find that?
So if I can add to that, so staff, not just in the finance department, but across all departments, frequently go to conferences, and that's often where you'll get the announcements from the province or the federal government. And as you might expect, the province and the federal government are very, very eager to announce all their capital programs. They want to brag about how much the money they're spending on municipalities. So that's where we get a lot of the information from, is those conferences. We also have advisors in the field that we can reach out to, who are experts in the field and constantly looking for grants that will advise on grants. Sometimes those are through firms like MPE, and sometimes through other firms. So we do as much as we possibly can to make sure that we're maximizing every single grant opportunity out there, for sure. And occasionally I have seen council members come back and advise staff of grants that staff did not know about. So that would be great as well if council has any.
I just, talking to Councillor Nesbitt, we were talking one time about, the grants. If the city applies for 25 grants and we get these, if we put on the website someplace, if we can put the grants that we get and we apply for, maybe people in the community can chime in and say, hey, you know what, there's this grant or that grant, have you tried that? It's just some outside information we could be gathering.
Oops, I'm sorry, I do. It's not necessarily a question, but just a comment. Like, if we're looking to reduce some of this budget so that we can get down that rate, I'd like to suggest that we start with the council budget portion that we've seen a little bit of an increase, and that I would wonder if we could have the discussion about not sending everybody to different conferences and reducing some of our expenses across the board in that area. And I think that's a very doable thing. And that's just the first line of your budgets. But if you can think of other things that would help, that would be a good suggestion for all of us to consider as well. Thank you.
Councillor Phillipson.
I was going to make a comment about the grants. I signed up for a grant workshop tomorrow at noon between 12 and 1. So I'm going to give you a list of all the grants that you can apply for. But the question I was going to ask is about the airport. We put $58,000 into the airport, so does the county. What is that money used for, and are they close to cost recovery? How does the airport, how does it work?
Through the chair to Councillor Phillipson. We are 50-50 with the county on the airport. I just actually sent them the budget, but we are not going on we're balanced budget yet. So the commission has spoke about increasing the fees yet again, to hopefully within one more increase be at that balanced budget, or it may take even maybe more than one increase yet. I can't speak for them right now.
Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. First of all, Councillor Nesbitt, you're speaking my language. I'm all for that, and you know I'm all for that. My question is in regards to the CCFB. I don't know who I have to talk to, but probably Ms. Slaney. It says mostly used for Brooksnet and Skateboard Park, 956,000. Is that for the 2026 budget year as well?
Let me take a quick peek here. So
Page 38.
Yep. So basically, the CCBF, that's what it's typically been used for in the past. So in 2026, we're proposing it be used for the Ford Rapid Response Vehicle and the sanitary trunk main along with LGFF. And then it will continue to be used to finish if the skateboard park isn't finished this year, and then the broadband to complete that still. Those are the plans for that.
So this slide is kind of incorrect. That's what it was used for previously.
Yeah, so that slide
was like,
about grants information is just explaining like how we've typically used grants and seen grants up to
Okay.
date so far. It's just explaining like current practice with the grants, just so you guys have an idea. Not future plans necessarily.
Okay, thank you.
Any other further questions? Okay,
It's maybe a silly question because I'm sure I don't quite understand it, but we have a utility bylaw, garbage collection, and maybe it's an Amy question. There's a reduced rate for people that are 65 and over. That's true. Could we have a look at that one?
CEO Legore?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we can look at that when the bylaw is presented. We hope to give bylaws first reading and even maybe second reading on Wednesday. And certainly you can look at that time, and we can make any changes you want.
Okay, well, seeing no more questions, what I shall do then is call for an adjournment, and it's been moved by Councillor Regner that the meeting adjourn at 6:37 p.m. All those in favor? Well, I see one hand. Yeah, excuse me. Excuse me.
Sorry.
Do you want to adjourn? Okay,
Sorry.
thank you. All carried.